Hello students. The topic which we'll be seeing for this class is sensors and its types. This is one of the topics in the unit 5. So the topics which we'll be seeing under this is what is the sensors basically, and the different types of sensors, sensor framework, types of sensor framework, the sensors which are supported by the Android, and sensor framework. Now to start with, what are the sensors basically? See, all of us would be knowing what is a sensor basically, but most of the Android powered devices generally have built-in sensors that are used to measure the motion, orientation, and various environmental conditions. These sensors are generally capable of providing a raw data with high precision and accuracy, and are very useful if we want to monitor 3D device movement or position, or if you want to monitor changes in the ambient environment near a device. For example, a game might track readings from a device gravity sensor to infer complex user gestures and motions, such as tilt, it can be shake or rotation or a swing. For example, even a weather application might use a device temperature sensor and a humidity sensor in order to calculate the report, the dew point, or even there can be a travel application that is using geomagnetic field sensor. It can be accelerometer in order to report a compass bearing, and so on. So these are all of the types of sensors, and what are sensors doing in our Android devices. So there are some basic types of sensors we have. One is the motion sensors, next is environmental sensors, and then the position sensors. So we'll see one after the other. The first one is the motion sensor. See, these sensors generally measure acceleration forces and rotational forces along the three axes. Now, what are the three axes? It is x-axis, y-axis, and the z-axis. This category includes accelerometer, gravity sensors, and gyroscopes. Second is the environmental sensors. See, these sensors measures various environmental parameters such as ambient air temperature and pressure, illumination, and humidity. This category includes barometers, photometers, or thermometers. Third type is the position sensors. These sensors measures the physical position of a device as the name suggests itself. This category includes orientation sensors and magnetometers. So this is all about the types of sensors. Next, what are the uses of a sensor framework? Well, the sensor framework generally provides several classes and interfaces that help us to perform a wide variety of sensor related tasks. For example, we can use the sensor framework to do the following. Determine which sensors are available on a device. It will be used to determine this, and it is used to determine an individual sensor's capability. If you are using a separate individual sensor, so what are its capabilities? It helps us to register and unregister the sensor event listeners that are used to monitor sensor changes. So these are all the uses of the sensor framework. Now, what are the different types of sensor frameworks? Let me see. See, Android sensor framework generally allows us to access many types of sensors. Okay, some are hardware based and some would be software based. The hardware based sensors are physical components that is built into a handset or tablet device. They derive their data by directly measuring specific environmental properties such as acceleration, geomagnetic field strength, or angular change. Software-based sensors, on the other hand, derive their data from one or more of the hardware-based sensors and are sometimes also called as virtual sensors or synthetic sensors. The linear acceleration sensor, gravity sensor, these are all the examples of software-based sensors. See, a few Android-powered devices have every type of sensor. For example, most handset devices and tablets have an accelerometer and a magnetometer, but fewer devices would be having barometers or thermometers. Also, a device can have more than one sensor of a given type. For example, a device can have two gravity sensors, but each one will be having a different range in it. So these are all the different types of sensor frameworks. Now moving on to the sensor types that are basically supported by the Android platform. There are many actually, but I'm just going to talk about few of them. The very first type is, first sensor type is this type accelerometer. See this, I'm going to tell you what is the type of the sensor and the description about it and what are the common uses of them. So this accelerometer type sensor is a hardware type of sensor. It is used to measure the acceleration force in meters per second square that is applied to a device on all the three physical axes. We know what are the three physical axes: x-axis, y-axis and z-axis, which actually includes the force of gravity. It is the most important thing. The common uses will be motion detection. What type of motion it is going to detect? The shake, tilt, these type of motions will be detected. Second type is ambient temperature. It is also a hardware type of sensor. It is used to measure the ambient room temperature in degrees Celsius. The common usage of it is monitoring air temperatures. Third type is gyroscope. This is also a hardware type of sensor which is used to measure a device rate of rotation around each of the three physical axes. It can be x-axis, y-axis and z-axis. And the use of it is rotation detection. It is basically detecting the rotation. So what type of rotation? It can be spin, it can be a turn or something of that kind. The fourth type is light. It is also a hardware type of sensor. It is used to measure the ambient light level. And usage is controlling the screen brightness. The fifth type is relative humidity. It's a hardware type of sensor again, measures the relative ambient humidity in percentage. And its use will be monitoring dew point, absolute and relative humidity. The sixth type is pressure. This is also a hardware type of sensor, measures the ambient air pressure. And usage is monitoring air pressure changes. What are the air pressure changes at different places or different levels? Seventh type is linear acceleration. It can be a software type or it can be even a hardware type. It measures the acceleration force that is applied to a device on all the three physical axes x, y, and z, excluding the force of gravity. See, we saw the first type of sensor as accelerometer. It was also the same description, but it includes the force of gravity, whereas the linear acceleration excludes the force of gravity. And the use is monitoring acceleration along a single axis. The eighth type is orientation, which is a software type of sensor. It measures the degrees of rotation that a device makes around all the three physical axes x, y, and z, and its usage is to determine the device position. That is as the name suggests, orientation, the device position will be measured. The ninth type is proximity. It is a hardware type of sensor, measures the proximity of an object in centimeter relative to the view screen of a device. This sensor is typically used to determine whether a handset is being held up to a person's ear or not. So the usage is obviously when phone position during a call, whether it is near your ear or how much away it is from your ear or so on. That is proximity sensor. So these are few types of sensors. Lastly, we have the sensor framework. See, we can access this sensor framework is nothing but it's a part of Android.hardware package. So this is Android.hardware is going to be the package that is going to include a lot of classes and interfaces, which are going to be very useful for us to access the sensor. So we can access these sensors and acquire the raw sensor data by using the Android sensor framework. The very first type of class is sensor manager. We can use this class in order to create an instance of the sensor service. This class provides various methods for accessing and listing sensors. It is also enabling us to register or unregister the sensor event listeners. It's also used to get orientation information. All of them is done by using the class sensor manager. Second type is sensor. We can use this class in order to create an instance of a specific sensor. This class provides various methods that let you determine a sensor's capabilities. The third type is sensor event. This class is used to create a sensor event object that provides information about a sensor event. A sensor event object includes the information such as type of sensor that that generated the event, accuracy of the data, and the timestamp for the event. The last one is the sensor event listener. This interface is normally used to create two callback methods that receive notifications when sensor value changes or any sensor accuracy changes are happening. So these are the different type of classes and interfaces in sensor framework. And in any typical application, you can use these sensor related APIs in order to perform two basic tasks. First task is identifying sensors and sensor capabilities. Second is monitoring sensor events. Thank you, students. Hope this session was useful for you. Thank you.